Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea, talking about some of the biggest news stories surrounding the club in recent days. But before we get into any of that, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also hit that like button if you're enjoying the content because it helps out the channel as well. Firstly, let's get into the future of Willian. Willian has rejected a contract offer again from Chelsea. This whole thing about 3 years, Willian wanting 3 years, Chelsea only willing to offer him 2 years. And although there were reports last week that maybe Chelsea had got a breakthrough with Willian and he may be staying a further year, it now looks very likely that he will be leaving and most likely to Arsenal to move across London to play their next season in the Premier League. As you can see here, reported by Nazar Kinsella in goal. Willian has again turned down an offer of a 2-year contract from Chelsea, but the winger has delayed making a final decision on his future. It says here he still wants to play in the final game against, of course, Bayern Munich, likely Chelsea's final game of the season against Bayern Munich on Saturday. The Blues' chances of keeping Willian appear to be slim as they are immovable on the length of contract they are willing to offer. Chelsea have recently upped their 1-year contract policy for players over 30 to 2 years, but are unwilling to push that again to 3 for the Brazil international. And as well, Fabrizio Romano tweeted about this, as you can see on your screen now, as well as other reporters, basically all leaning in the direction that Willian will be moving likely to Arsenal this summer. His agent, of course, had made quotes recently. There's a lot of offers for him. It's not confirmed he'll be going to Arsenal, but just based on what I'm seeing at the moment, that appears to be his most likely destination if, of course, he leaves Chelsea, which does appear to be the outcome, which for me is the expected outcome. I would have been stunned if he was to stay at Chelsea for at least another 2 years. It just felt to me, all of the noise we've been hearing way back since, February, this was the natural endpoint. I think it's very symbolic that both Willian and Pedro leaving at the same time. I think it's the right thing for Chelsea to do, new era, bringing in new faces, Lampard wanting to impose his vision on the team. I know Lampard probably wanted to keep Willian, not only because, of what he influences in the dressing room and how important Willian has been for Chelsea this year. I think he's been very impressive for Frank Lampard, and Lampard has clearly leaned on his experience, but I think at the same time, just there is that sense of freshening up now. And I think Willian wanting that 3 years, for me, it's a bit too much considering his age, considering other players coming into the team. And yeah, it just feels like a natural endpoint. I guess the difficulty for Chelsea is losing Willian not only to a rival potentially in Arsenal, but also now having probably to go out and get another wide attacker probably. We could maybe make do without signing another attacker. I mean, of course, as I'll get into later in the video, selling players is a big thing for Chelsea this summer, and also trying to recruit players in the left back position, centre back and goalkeeper. That should be priority over another wide player. And then you look at sort of those players in attacking areas that Lampard has got. I mean, Chelsea could go without maybe signing another winger in truth with Willian and Pedro. Of course, Willian and Pedro both leaving. Mason Mount can play wide as he has done frequently this season. If Kai Havertz comes in, he can play out wide as well. We know Timo Werner can play out wide. Ziyech in a number of positions as well. Callum Hudson-ODOI, Christian Pulisic. So signing another wide attacker for me isn't crucial, but maybe you could see a side Benrahma still come to the club later on in the window. I don't think it's top priority at the moment. But losing Willian, I am going to be writing a piece on Willian and probably making a video when it is confirmed that he's leaving the club, because I do have a lot of appreciation for Willian, and I think a lot of people should have appreciation for Willian based on his Chelsea career. But I think, I just think this is the natural outcome. I look at players like Christian Pulisic, who's doing so well at the moment, who looks like the future of Chelsea. Players coming in as well. Callum Hudson-ODOI, still very young, could prosper at Chelsea Football Club. It's their time now. Hakim Ziyech as well, I think is going to be a big player for Chelsea in the coming years. So I just think now is the right time for Willian to move on. I wish him the best. As I say, I'll probably do a video if it is confirmed he is leaving. I think that is the likely outcome now. Please let me know your opinions on this. Do you expect Willian to be leaving? What do you think about him potentially moving to Arsenal? Let me know in the comments below. Next is going to be all about Chelsea potentially having a mass player exodus this summer. Chelsea clearing out a lot of players to get in new signings, especially in defensive areas this summer. As you can see here from Gary Jacob in the Times, his big piece, which is about Ben Chilwell. Frank Lampard steps up Ben Chilwell bid with defensive clear out. As Gary Jacob explains here, up to 10 players could leave Chelsea this summer. Kepa Arrizabalaga is expected to go out on loan. They will also listen to offers for Kurt Zouma, Andreas Christensen, Emerson and Marcus Alonso, and they are also willing to sell N'Golo Kante. This is echoed similarly by Matt Law in the Telegraph by his piece on Frank Lampard facing wait to find out whether he will be allowed to rebuild his Chelsea defence. Letting players go is, I think, as big a priority see for Chelsea as, you know, bringing in players, especially with Kai Havertz. That's something that's referenced by Matt Law, considering how big of a fee Chelsea are going to need to pay to bring in Kai Havertz, and of course the money that needs to be invested in that defensive area, which Chelsea really can't go another summer without improving, really, if they want to challenge for the Premier League in the coming years. So looking through those players, I think mostly for me, I'm going to be talking about defensively. I've spoken about N'Golo Kante. That's a massive shock to me. I can't see Chelsea selling N'Golo Kante this summer. I really can't, based on how important he was for Frank Lampard at the start of Project Restart. Of course, his fitness is a concern, but I can't see that being one of the players to let go. So I want to look at some of the centre-backs, because of course we want to see a centre-back come in this summer. And I want to go through each one for me and sort of give my opinions on what ones I think could be let go this summer. Firstly, Kurt Zouma could command the highest fee out of the current centre-backs, but form-wise for me has been our best this season. I'd love to see Kurt Zouma next to a new centre-back. I think he could do wonders, and I think it'd be unfair on Kurt Zouma. I've heard this from the likes of Simon Johnson, that the reason Kurt Zouma is being touted, and I think I've spoke about this on the channel from Julien Laurens, the French journalist at ESPN, reporting that, you know, maybe Kurt Zouma wants a move away from Chelsea. He's worried about his first team football. But I think if Zouma was to stay and Chelsea were to bring in another centre-back, I think he could feature in a brilliant centre-back pairing for Chelsea. So I think it'd be a silly move for Chelsea to let Kurt Zouma go. I think it's, you know, widely accepted that he's probably been Chelsea's most consistent and best defender in what has been a struggling defence. Next, you got Antonio Rudiger, has had a really poor season, had injuries. His form has been really poor as well. Another bad day for him on Saturday in the FA Cup final, especially in the build-up to that second goal. Though for me, still looks settled. The influence in the Timo Werner deal, even if he does become a rotational player, I can't see Rudiger potentially moving on unless a massive offer comes in for him from someone. So I think he'll likely stay, even though there is a lot of criticism about him. I think you still need to keep some, of course, for a rotation, for bringing in for different competitions. Fikayo Tomori was brilliant at the start of the season. Him and Zouma forming a really good relationship at the back for Chelsea, especially during the autumn. I remember that Ajax game. Both of them were brilliant on that night, and has got a big future with me still at Chelsea. Has suffered from injuries, you know, hope of him getting a second chance on the Frank Lampard. Unfortunately, it just hasn't materialised. Maybe he could get a run out against Bayern Munich on Saturday, but it has been talk of a Premier League loan. I've spoken about it before on the channel, potentially going to West Ham. That could have something to do with Declan Rice moving in the other direction, but a Premier League loan could be necessary for Fikayo Tomori next season if we do bring in a big centre-back to get in minutes next year. I know Everton were in for him last summer, but David Luiz leaving meant that Fikayo Tomori didn't get that loan, and he became a first-team player and got that breakthrough under Frank Lampard. Chelsea won't be selling this player permanently. I absolutely can't see it, but maybe a loan could be a realistic option for Tomori this summer. But for me, the one player that I can see Chelsea selling, and I don't think it'd be a massive mistake selling, is Andreas Christensen. I've criticised Christensen. It's a shame for me, but I just think for me the biggest problem with Christensen is physicality wise. I just don't think he's suited to the Premier League. I think I've seen enough at this point. Chelsea could command a decent fee for Christensen, I think, from a variety of clubs in Europe. He's 24 years old now, and it's not like Tomori where, you know, he's still a young player, still developing. You've got to give him time to make mistakes to get better. I think Christensen looks really good when the ball is on the floor for opponents. I think that Man City game showed that, and it periods in the Arsenal game as well, as people were pointing out on Twitter. But the majority of games Chelsea play, it's a physical league, the Premier League, and I can't really have a situation where, you know, Christensen looks good in big games, which are not the majority of the games you play, but then can be outfought, outmuscled against the likes of Sheffield United, which he has been, lapses in concentration, and I think Christensen will be the one likely to make way. I think Chelsea just can't keep on waiting for him to mature and cut out those mistakes. Now, I think you can with a player like Fikayo Tomori. I don't think you can with Andreas Christensen, so I think Christensen could be the one to let go. And just looking at other players as well, you know, you got to remember the loan army as well. You know, Timothy Bakayoko could be sold permanently. Davide Zappacosta as well. Victor Moses, Danny Drinkwater. Can Chelsea get a decent fee for him? I think there is a number of players. Jorginho, I think if Chelsea get a big fee for him from someone, they will be selling him this summer, but I think it's all about that fee for me. I don't think Chelsea are going to let him go on the cheap for Jorginho. I think they're going to look to recoup the money they paid for him in 2018. And there's also other players. Michy Batshuayi, I've spoken about on the channel before. I think Batshuayi is a difficult one, but I think has to be sold or at least loaned for a permanent move next season. He won't be at the club as well. Ross Barkley for me is one of those players I think could go either way. I think Frank Lampard has shown in spells that he likes Ross Barkley, likes him in the team, but with a player like Kai Havertz coming in, I think Ross Barkley has always been a player that I think Chelsea could look at as inconsistent, probably not good enough at the top level, and at times, yeah, can be a valuable squad player, but in terms of getting a fee, Chelsea know they're guaranteed a profit on Ross Barkley, and I think would have willing buyers in the Premier League to take take him away from Chelsea. So those are my opinions on the potential clear out. I think there will be a lot of outgoings this summer, and I think it's important to reshape and rebuild this squad as big players coming in. If you're going to sign the likes of Kai Havertz, Chelsea needs to make funds elsewhere. Marina has always been really good at getting fees for selling players, even players that you don't expect a high fee for. I mean, Morata for me was the biggest example of that. It's going to be a lot more difficult with the likes of Kepa, with Bakayoko and with Batshuayi, but I wouldn't put it past her getting decent fees for those players, which then in turn could help Chelsea invest in a new centre-back, in a new left-back and a new goalkeeper. Please let me know in the comments below out of the players I've discussed that you'd like to see Chelsea sell. Who do you think Chelsea will let go this summer and who do you think will stay? Please let me know in the comments below. But that is it for this edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea. Have a great day and I'll see you again.